Hi, it's Jorge from Oh So Fast Reviews. Today I'll be reviewing American Horror Story Apocalypse, Season 8, Episode 2, The Morning After. So this episode starts in the bunker with Emily kind of hearing a noise in her room. From there, she kind of starts looking and she notices that her closet door pops open. Immediately from there, she kind of goes in and looks, and you kind of see a snake which resembles the same snake from Covenant, if I believe, kind of wrapping in her closet. The snake pops out, and kind of all hell breaks loose with tons of snakes going everywhere. From this point, she ends up giving out a huge yell. From there, Kathy Bates' character kind of just comes in, grabs one of the snakes, chops their heads off, and kind of jokes a little bit about having new food. So from there, you kind of get a cutscene into the kitchen, or not the kitchen, but the dining room table, and they end up showing the snakes, kind of chopped up. But right before they start eating, the snakes are still alive. Reason 450. I love and hate this show, but I hate snakes, so that scene definitely creeped me out. From there, we kind of go into the intro, and definitely want to say how amazing the intros are to American Horror Story. If you've never kind of watched this series, all the intros are just so intricate and so weird. So definitely love those. After that, you kind of see everyone gathered in the library, and from the library, Landon kind of comes in, Michael Landon, who's the guy who was introduced at the very end of episode 1. From there, he kind of talks about how everything kind of has gone to crap, basically. All the other bunkers are dead, minus there's one that's the sanctuary, and he'll basically choose who will go in there and who doesn't. And he said he's going to choose based on interviews. From there, instantly, Evan Peters' character, Gallant, basically ends up saying that he'll go and interview first. The interview happens, and it's very weird. Instantly, Landon asks him to tell him about his anger and his grandmother. And he kind of goes into it and kind of talking about how his nana wanted him to be the perfect gay. And Landon at that point kind of, tells him that his grandma used to shame him, which kind of shocks Evan Peters' character, because he starts thinking, how do you know this? And that's where you kind of get a glimpse into Landon saying how he knows everything. There was a line that he said, which I thought was so interesting, where he said, I'm trying to remember, it was something like, if there was a God, why would he let Armageddon happen? Which is kind of a unique, twisted way of talking about it, when I think his character in the long run is basically the devil. So we'll definitely see how that goes and where that goes from there. From there, Evan goes into talking about how his nana used to throw him these little gay lunches and how all the people hated her, but they did it because hopefully they were hoping that she would give them all their money. And then it shows kind of Evan entering in and showing how he ruined this by basically putting on a gas mask and drinking soup through a gas mask, which I thought was hilarious. From there, you kind of get a cutscene with Evan back in his room, and he kind of starts to masturbate. And as soon as he does that, he hears a knock on the door, and lo and behold, it's the leather man, or the rubber man, from the murder house from season 1. So definitely thought that was kind of cool. From there, you kind of see a cut with Emily and Timmy talking about trying to escape and leave. So some way or shape or form, both of them are going to get jacked up later on in this show, or in this season. From there, you kind of see a cut back into Gallant and the Leatherman just kind of having his way with him, basically just taking it from behind. The part that was weird was that his granny ended up kind of hearing him, having sex, and when she walked in, definitely did not enjoy what she saw. Then we kind of get a cut right back into, I guess, kind of like the library in that gathering room, and Evie ends up talking with Miriam about the oh no, I'm sorry. That's when his grandma talks with Miriam about the kind of what she saw happening, with her grandson kind of having sex and getting railed, and how she was fearful that her grandson wouldn't be let in. Um, from there, you kind of jump back and you see Emily and Timmy, and they kind of find, um, they enter a room which I think belongs to Landon, and they see that there's a computer there and it's on, which is crazy. And they start looking at it, and they kind of see how there is internet basically, and they're kind of wondering how that's possible. From there, you kind of get a quick cutscene, which I thought was kind of interesting, of Landon talking with Miss Venable. Um, you know, he starts talking about her and having a chat, and how basically the outside world has been completely, just what you would expect after a nuclear holocaust, I guess is the best way I can explain it. And he tells a story how he saw this little family outside, and the mom wanted, him to kill the daughter. And when she asked him if he did, he just looked so shocking. He was like, no. So the outside world definitely, I think, is going to play into this season. And just looking at how wild it kind of is. Um, Venable from there tells him basically all about the guests. Kind of goes through one by one, kind of how, Coco is a complete waste. She's just kind of like a rich snob, basically. And then she talks about how the hairdresser is also a waste. From there, Landon kind of changes the conversation, kind of goes into the interview, per se. And from the interviews, it's very interesting. It's almost like he wants to know what your biggest vulnerability is, or what you're afraid of the most. From there, you kind of, he basically asked her to undress, so he could kind of see her shame, which is, obviously her back, her spine being all jacked up. From there, Mead and Vanellope talk about what happened with the grandson, and how, Nana ended up catching him, having sex. So they think obviously it's with Landon, and they start kind of thinking how they must know each other from the outside world. They end up tying up, Evan's character, and whipping him. But every time they whip him, all he does is kind of yells out a kind of a strong gay activist name every single time, which I thought was kind of an interesting way. Obviously, they see that it wasn't working. From there, you kind of see Landon enter, and obviously, Evan's character gets excited about this. And then that's kind of when Landon tells him that he wouldn't screw him, even if he was the last man on earth, and how his Nana reported him, which I thought was interesting. From there, you kind of turn, and everyone's back in the library again. Um, and I think her last name was Stevens, but she starts telling a little story. And hopefully, she has a bigger role. She has a huge role in the 100, which obviously, if you see my channel, I love. So I'm hoping that she gets a big role in this. From there, she's telling her story, and then Coco kind of interrupts, and she's like the epitome of like your rich snob, talking about just all these other options, and how all these people are old, and basically in the nicest of way, kind of saying how it's useless if they're kept to reproduce, because obviously they're too old and all that. From there, uh, Evan's character kind of enters, and it's definitely a huge fight between him and his Nana. And then his Nana, basically, I mean, she just has comebacks after comebacks, which I thought was awesome. She basically tells him, one lifetime of me is worth 50 of yours. Kind of just showing how she's lived through so much, and obviously his life has just kind of been ruined from there. From there, you kind of go to a cutscene with Emily and Timmy again, and basically they just start getting it on. It's the nicest way I can put it. They kind of say, how silly it's been, kind of waiting this whole time. From there, Rubberman kind of shows up, so who knows what happens there. After that, you kind of see Evan's character just sitting on the sofa, just kind of thinking about everything that's been going on. and all of a sudden the rubber man pops up, which I thought was a very interesting take. Um, from there, he kind of starts following him, and you from there you instantly go into Emily kind of sleeping with Timmy in the bed, and then all of a sudden, Kathy Bates' character and that 8-foot guard basically enter and just kind of take him away, kind of knowing, hey, you know the rules, you know what's gonna happen. Um, and then from there you get switched up, and you kind of start seeing Galan and this rubber man kind of going at it a little bit, and he basically pins him on top, and the rubber man's on the ground, and he ends up whispering to him, you wouldn't screw me if I was the last man, while holding a pair of his scissors, and he ends up, killing the rubber man. But just then, you see the door kind of fling open, and he looks over there, and he sees that Landon is standing right outside the door, and just like that, the switch happened, and he ended up killing his grandmother. So I definitely thought that was so crazy. So obviously, Nana, she's gone. She's the one of the first victims in this episode. Um, from there, you kind of go into a quick cutscene of Timmy and Emily kind of basically about to get executed, is the nicest way I can put it. They get, thrown into kind of this room. Instantly, though, Timmy kind of does this little backfire in the sense of before he got his head blown off. Does kind of one of these quick judo moves, grabs the gun, shoots the guard, ends up shooting Kathy Bates' character, Miss Means. But then from there, that 8-foot guard, that woman, just kind of grabs him. And the part that was weird is you see, Kathy Bates' character moving away. And the part that I thought interesting was when she's checking her blood, she's bleeding white, which is just crazy. So I know somehow that's going to tie into something. But I thought that was really, really strange and really weird. And that's kind of how the episode ends. So obviously this show it's just wild. That's the nicest way I can put it. It's definitely a unique show. Definitely can't wait for episode 3 to come out next week. Usually with American Horror Story, what I've gathered is it kind of takes a couple episodes before everything starts unwinding, and you kind of start seeing all the intricacies and just everything that's happening throughout the whole show. So definitely looking forward to that. Want to hear your guys' thoughts and what you guys think. Definitely looking forward to this season. So far, I love it. Obviously, 2 episodes in, but I love it. Let me know your thoughts about this episode. What do you think is going to happen next episode? Thoughts, theories. Do you think Emily and Timmy make it? I'm right now thinking that both of them will make it. I think they're going to have a bigger impact throughout the show. But yeah, definitely let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you caught any of the other little Easter eggs tying this to other seasons. Would love to hear it. But as always, if you like what you see, hit that big thumb up button, subscribe. And that's all I got for today. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.